Today we're conducting our second annual Entertainment Summit, which is a day-long focus on the industry here in Louisiana, including movie, sound, live, and digital media activities, and the forward look of the things that we're trying to accomplish, and certainly a benchmark of what we've been able to accomplish in stabilizing the industry here in Louisiana.
Well, I think entertainment as a whole, creates job and investment opportunities for Louisiana residents, and that's very important. One of our core missions is, of course, creating those opportunities for our residents so that the best and brightest can live, can play, can work here in their state that they call home.
We're talking about 7,500 jobs in Louisiana. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in payroll. We're talking about a net investment by the state that's less than $100 million that causes a $6.29 return on that investment as it passes through small businesses, as it drives payroll for Louisiana citizens.
Thank you. You know, I was told this was sold out. It really is. I don't think you could put another person in here. Good morning, and thank all of you for inviting me to join you again at this very important summit. And I want to thank all of you for being here, all of you who contribute in so many different ways to making Louisiana special and unique. And I want to thank Don Pearson and all the people at Louisiana Economic Development. So why is this summit important? Simply put, creativity is at the heart of our culture here in Louisiana. And I think that introduction sort of summed it up much better than I ever could. The birthplace of jazz and Zydeco and bounce. I'm not even sure what bounce is, but I'm assuming we gave birth to it. And we had a lot to do with the creation of rock and roll. And as you know, you just saw some of them. We have some of the best venues in the entertainment world, from the Strand Theater in Shreveport to the Orpheum Theater that you saw right there to Sanger. And in fact, down in New Orleans, they have this little production called Hamilton going on at the Sanger. And Donna will be there tomorrow. Your First Lady will be there tomorrow with hundreds of school children from all over the New Orleans area who are going to have special access for a few hours tomorrow, so that hopefully that will light a fire in them that will continue this for generations to come. The music we record in Louisiana wins Grammys. The movies we make here win Oscars. Isn't that exciting? You know, motion picture director Steven Soderbergh grew up right here in Louisiana in Baton Rouge. He went to University High School, while his father was the dean of the College of Education at LSU. So his cinematic career had its start right here, and he began making short films as a teenager using old school Super 8 and 16 millimeter cameras. And as I'm sure everyone in this room is aware, Steven went on to become one of Hollywood's most influential movie makers of the past 30 years. And that's what we're all about here today as well. Movies, TV, live performance, sound recording, digital content, and the people involved in these creative endeavors right here in our state. And this activity, from video game development to motion picture production, provides thousands of jobs and contributes millions of dollars to our state's economy every single year. Make no mistake, what you do is tremendously important to the success of our state. Last year, we certified $446 million in movie and television production. That is an increase of more than $100 million in documented production activity just from the year before. And these projects generated more than $148 million in payroll for Louisiana residents. That's why I was so excited to go to California last year. Spent 2 days there, went to 8 studios. I went with LED and Chris Daly. We went with industry representatives. IATSE was with us. And we worked really hard. And what I learned was the folks there, they love Louisiana. And they now have renewed confidence that our program here is stable, it is predictable, and they really want to return. And in fact, they are returning to Louisiana in a big way. But it's also digital media production. You know, last year we certified $92 million, up from $52 million the year before in 2017. The vast majority of that, 84 million of the 92 million, was payroll for Louisiana residents engaged in these cutting-edge endeavors. We also certified $272,000 in sound recording production. And we certified more than $10 million in live performance production. And that's everything from opera to ballet to Cirque du Soleil and Marvel Universe Live. So by any measure, 2018 was a banner year for entertainment production in Louisiana. And I'm even more excited about 2019. And not just because I'll be reelected in 2019. In February, we saw 6 Louisiana performers win a total of 7 Grammy Awards in musical genres from blues to jazz to heavy metal and Christian music. And by the way, how about Lauren Daigle, y'all? She's excellent. She actually performed at the Governor's Mansion a while back. 2 weeks later, Green Book won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. I doubt anyone in here doesn't know this, but just in case somebody is unaware, Green Book was filmed in and around New Orleans with Louisiana crew and cast members. Just the latest example of the success that comes from working with Louisiana film industry professionals. And just this month, we had 17 feature films and television series in productions across the state of Louisiana. These projects run the gamut from independent films to major studio productions to successful TV shows that have been here for multiple seasons. NCIS New Orleans on CBS, for example, is currently filming its 5th season. It's estimated that this season's production will result in more than $86 million spent in Louisiana. And that includes $45 million of Louisiana resident payroll. And think about that. That's one production. And we know that shows like NCIS New Orleans also drive a considerable part of the tourism that comes to Louisiana. So why are we seeing so much activity now, especially when you look back to about 2 or 3 years ago? The short answer is the result of the enhancements to Louisiana's entertainment incentive programs that the legislature approved and that I signed into law in 2017. And I knew it was the right thing to do. What made it difficult was the $2 billion budget deficit that I inherited, the budget instability that we had for a couple of years, but we were actually able to stabilize this program before we stabilized the overall budget. And that is because we were committed to it. We knew it was the right thing to do. We knew that long term it would pay dividends. And clearly it is. These programs are working. It's good for the state that we could bring stability and predictability to the incentive programs. The people in California, the 8 studios that we met with, they all told us they recognize that. And the truth is, they want to be in Louisiana. They love our state. They know that we have capable crew members here. They like the fact that they can hang out in cities like New Orleans, but also across the state, whether it's Shreveport or Baton Rouge. When I met with Tom Hanks, he was here shooting the Greyhound, I believe it was. He told me that he really enjoyed being here because he could go out with his wife, who was a famous actress herself, and actually have a meal and be left alone. You know, the people here in Louisiana, for some reason, are just a little bit different in how they treat these stars. So all of this is important. Production companies, be they motion picture makers, recording artists, live performers, digital content creators, they wouldn't be here if they couldn't get their projects made. And here in Louisiana, we have a production infrastructure and a skilled workforce that are the envy of the industry. And we have a growing economy now to back it up. Since 2016, this is some of the other work that we've done here with LED taking the lead. Since 2016, we've landed 128 new major economic development projects for the state of Louisiana that will create more than 27,000 new permanent jobs here. The GDP for the state of Louisiana, the size of our economy, is at an all-time high of $252 billion. That's more than $250 billion. Just this week, the Bureau of Economic Analysis released a report showing that Louisiana personal income hit a record high of $215 billion with a 4.5% increase in the fourth quarter of 2018. And through partnership over partnership, we have put an end to through partnership over partisanship. These glasses are not quite working for me today. But working together, we've put an end to the budget deficits that for too long have held our state back. And when it comes to the entertainment industry, we expect to see continued sustained growth. You know, one of the changes that we enacted provides an incentive for companies that generate permanent entertainment industry jobs here. And this morning, I'm happy to announce that Asteri of Shreveport is the latest Louisiana company joining our entertainment job creation program. Asteri is a digital content creator and large-scale testing solution provider operating as part of the Shreveport-Bossier City anchor to our state's I-20 cyber corridor. And we've had studios in New Orleans sign up for this performance-based job creation program previously. And now I'm glad to add our first North Louisiana company to the mix. And that's one of the things that we're trying very hard to do. These are state incentive programs, and we really want the state as a whole to benefit. And obviously, we have a very, very strong presence in New Orleans, and we should. But we need to move this all around the state, and our incentive programs are designed to make that happen as well. Each company participating in the program must hire at least 5 new permanent employees in the development or distribution of audio or visual entertainment products for public consumption. And companies that maintain these new jobs for a required length of time can qualify for a payroll tax credit. And by the way, Asteri President Marcus Martin is here with us today, and I'd ask Marcus to stand up. Thank you very much. He will be one of the panelists this afternoon discussing the outlook for digital entertainment production in Louisiana. And I know he's going to have a lot more to say then about Asteri's place in Louisiana's digital future. So Marcus, I want to thank you and your team for your commitment to this craft and your commitment to Louisiana. Another new addition to our program is the creation of an entertainment development fund. And this fund will be used to support our local content creators, furthering education and workforce development. And our intent, yes, our intent is to nurture our homegrown content creators who will ultimately become successful filmmakers in their own right. It's just one more way that we're working in Louisiana to create and sustain jobs, but not just jobs, careers. Allowing people to stay in Louisiana and do what they want to do, what they feel called to do. There is no reason why these creative individuals should ever believe they need to leave Louisiana to live their life's dream. It can happen right here. It is happening right here, and you're all testament to that. So we're all going to together do what we can to help develop that next generation of Steven Soderberghs. And when that happens, we want them to find all they need to create the entertainment of the future for the world, but to do it right here in Louisiana. That is going to happen. I am confident of it. Together, we're going to make it happen. I am so excited about our state. I'm excited about the future, and I'm excited about the future of entertainment in Louisiana, because there's just some things we do better than anywhere else. And that's what you all do every single day, and you inspire me. So God bless you, and thank you very much for being here and giving me an opportunity to be with you again. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, there are several centers across the United States. Everyone knows Los Angeles. Everyone knows New York City. Louisiana is right up there with them. They're a fairly big player.
What advice do you have to people in Louisiana regarding the impact of this industry?
Understand that this brings in a lot of money from across the country and across the world. And if you want to have those jobs here, 7,500 jobs, this is a good investment for the state to make. So the first one is movie and video production. It's kind of a somewhat narrow definition of entertainment, so just bear with me for this one. $32 billion, about $5.5 billion in profit, so it's a decent margin business, and it pays about $5 billion in wages. This is across the country, of course, at 2018. There are about 6,000 businesses that fit into this category. Of course, many of those are small shops and so on like that. We'll talk about the larger players later on. And there's been some growth, about 2% over the last 5 years on an industry basis, and we're expecting that to accelerate a bit in the next 5 years. What we take away from this is that it is a large industry, it is a mature industry, and you're going through some changes, but you have a number of themes that we'll discuss right now. And that is, what are your sources of revenue? So think about your distribution channels, right, for these things. The things that immediately strike me about this, and when we look at the data, television, still a big player in this. There's still actually physical distribution. Who's the last time you bought a DVD? But anyhow, there's still a fair amount of revenue that comes into that stream. Box office, still a respectable 26%, but of course is declining. The two very interesting ones here, and I'm sure people are looking at this saying, what are you doing? But there is the 4% number for digital. Now this is very specific. This is digital only, and this is the digital channel. So this is the growing online delivery, not cable television, but the Netflix and Amazons, right? So it's still a small portion, but it is definitely growing and growing quickly. The one on here that I want to call attention to is the 28% foreign, and that will come back to for a very specific reason. There's a significant revenue stream coming from non-U.S. sources into the film industry. That's what's driving a big portion of it. In terms of product segmentation, the next slide, the big change, of course, and everybody knows this, the big change is that action films have been taking a larger and larger share. I think it's not a coincidence with the growth in foreign distribution. Action, obviously plays very well across the world. You don't have the same cultural language barriers when you have a Marvel comic hero beating up another one. It plays pretty well across those things. Increasing technology, of course, is a piece of that with the post-production side of things as well. And the rest of the categories are up there. The other major trends, has been hugely consolidating industry. Right now, if we look at Disney's acquisitions and all their assets they have, and NBC Universal, they actually account for, roughly speaking, and again in this sort of narrow band, about 50% right now. So you have a couple of huge players and then a diverse set of players after that. The typical model right now, as we're seeing, of course, is the quintessential sequel to the blockbuster action movie, right? Goes right in, you already have a product, you already have a brand, and you recreate it and you push it out there. So we're seeing those things, of course, and the increasing importance of that foreign distribution in particular, and the surge in digital delivery. So those are all the major background trends that are going on. On the next slide, you'll see perhaps the world's most boring graph. So just bear with me for a second here. But there is a point for me to say this. This graph is motion picture production jobs in the United States. The bottom line there, the dotted kind of lighter green line, it's the percent of all U.S. jobs that are in this, again, relatively narrow band. It doesn't capture all jobs, but it captures this narrow band of production company jobs. Goes from about 0.14% to about 0.18% over that time. So the share, and we'll talk about this, there's more exciting numbers coming. The share of the industry employment has actually increased. So it's not a particularly huge industry, again, that subsector, but it's growing, and it's growing faster than other sectors and the U.S. economy as a whole. So let's go to the next slide. These are the actual numbers, right? And what's critical here is the band at the bottom. The green band is employment trends in the United States for all industries, total U.S. jobs. We had a bump going up into 2008, dropping back down. We've recovered, and we're above the baseline, but not by very much, okay? The reality of it, we have recovered, and we have grown jobs, but the percent change is relatively modest. Compare that to the motion picture production job. Just those industries, that's the top line. You know, you're going from about 200,000 to almost 300,000. That's a 50% growth period between 2001 and the latest reported data. So you can see, of course, it's growing much, much faster. And again, this is in the face of automation, right? In automation, we would expect job numbers to decline. So you're not only replacing those replaced jobs, you are adding at a very fast clip. The next slide is probably the most interesting one, and I promise we'll get beyond these in just a second, but this is important. I don't want people to focus on the absolute numbers. I put them up there just so you can see the data points, but they don't capture all the jobs. We'll talk about the actual jobs numbers in a little bit. But I want to show you the direction and the magnitude changes. That's what's really important here. 2001, and this is Bureau of Labor Statistics data, we were only looking at about 2,400 jobs in this narrow band category. That jumps up to 9,000. And of course, we know why it dropped down after that, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, and we're going to revisit some of this. But relative growth, again, the baseline, instead of being the U.S., the baseline is Louisiana. So you can see in a very otherwise slow growth mode, we have huge growth in this industry. We'll talk about incentives and the role that plays in there. So next section, history of incentives. And why is this important? Because we have to have the context about what's happened to really understand what the message is going forward. So history of the film incentives. In 1992, Louisiana created it. Most people know this, but Louisiana was the major pioneer in this. You really started this. You started a trend. In 2002, you enhanced it quite significantly, and you started to have major results, and the industry responded, right? What happened? By 2009, 44 states had adopted some kind of film incentive. From 2009 to 2018, we had a bit of a reckoning, and to say, okay, some states started backpedaling, pulling back, some let it sunset, and so on. And then by today, we have 31 states, and some of them have kind of trimmed here or there. Some people will say this and say, oh, well, this is just an example of industry policy gone bad. No, this is absolutely normal. You can see this in 100 different industries. People see a model that works. You had a model that worked. They replicated it. And some of them, it didn't work for them, right? It doesn't make sense to do video production, film production, entertainment everywhere. You got to have a nexus of people. You have to have assets. You have to have talent. Some states just couldn't get to critical mass. They said, okay, we're moving on. Makes total sense to me. One last additional slide on this, on terms of the history of the film incentives. I will just say, if you look at the much, much larger entertainment industry, media and entertainment, it's one of the largest, the United States is the largest in the world. PricewaterhouseCoopers pegs it about $735 billion, so a huge section of the economy. Of course, we're talking about just one subsection of that. But this next quote is the one that I want you to focus on. Because again, from an economic point of view, I care about this, maybe you don't, but this you should care about, I believe. The U.S. filmed entertainment sector enjoyed a trade surplus of $13 billion in 2015. That's the latest available year. That represented 5% of the entire U.S. trade surplus. So all the industries in the United States that have a trade surplus, there's not that many, right? We have a huge trade deficit. Film represents 5 of that. So although the film industry in terms of employment is small, you have a huge outside effect. What does this mean? You are selling. Just like a manufacturer selling cars across the world, you're selling and money's coming in, money that would not otherwise be here. So this is an important point from an advocacy point of view. So what's the case for incentives? What is the why? How would we make the argument as an economist, right? How would I make the argument to say this? Well, overall, that media entertainment industry is fairly big. This subsector is growing and growing quickly and growing way faster. You are net exporters. You're bringing wealth in to Louisiana by doing this. When you sell box office in Boston, that money is paying the production company, which is paying local workers here. It's like you're importing dollars. Same thing with international trade. The incentives have clearly worked. I'll show you some slides in just a few, several instances where we can demonstrate conclusively that the incentives are effective. And then there's other benefits. You have PR, you have tourism. We were talking earlier about tourism and how difficult it is to quantify, but there are real benefits. Even if we can't quantify them, we know that you're getting a bump from that. Hard to quantify. And the fact of the matter is, from an industrial policy point of view, this country has had incentives in place for essentially its entire existence. Think subsidies, think tariffs, think regulatory protections. Those are all industry incentives or industry benefits for this kind of business, a traded business that brings new wealth in. The message is targeted, reasonable incentives produce results. If you want the results, this is a way to get them. So let's just look at the Louisiana case in particular. Again, started in 1992, expanded in 2002. In 2007, added live performance. 2015, you capped at 180. Uncertainty. The way the cap was put into place was on the claims, so you didn't know how much you're going to be able to claim. We had an experience with this in New York, by the way. 2017, you changed the cap, but you changed how the cap was enforced, and the industry is already responding. You've given the industry better certainty about the value of the credit, and they're able to add that to their capital stack in a way that's rational that their bankers can understand. What is the result? That's the result. The blue line is Louisiana tax credit certified spending, and the blue line is the film one in particular. Huge growth in certified spending, introduce a bunch of uncertainty, drops off a cliff. The governor was well spoken about this. You've already added some certainty back in, and we've already seen a response from the industry. To us, there's nothing clearer than looking at this graph. The incentives have an effect. If you remove the incentives, you remove the effect, right? So that's part of the discussion. I do want to, and uncertainty is critical to that. In the next slide, we have the case in New York. Like I said, we've been studying New York's film incentives for 6 years now. We've done 3 different reports. And I'm not sure you're going to be able to read this, but very briefly, New York, of course, followed Louisiana and started to react. The blue line is the percent of jobs in the film industry that are New York-based, right? So it's the percent of New York jobs relative to total U.S. jobs. So the film tax credit was introduced in 2004. In 2008, big expansion. The credit was extended, and it was expanded to 30%. In 2010, a post-production credit was added. In 2012, the post-production credit was increased. And then we also ran into some uncertainty about the extension of the program, and the particularities around that caused a crash. We're now recovering from that. I will say, however, that New York's cap at 420 is on borrowed time right now, and I'm watching this very closely. They have used up all their allocation years in terms of using up the credit, and they're running into issues now where they're extending people out further and further and further. They know what they're going to get. It's further in the future. That time value of money issue, I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out in New York. But again, the takeaway is incentives matter. Change the incentive, industry responds, right? The message to everyone is well-programmed incentives are effective, and you get jobs, and you get tax revenue, and you get earnings, and you're able to grow your economy.
Tell us, where does Louisiana's film tax credits, what does it mean to the people of Louisiana in terms of tax revenue and jobs and economic impact?
Sure, absolutely. Overall, it's about 7,500 jobs in a given year. And you get about $54 million in tax revenue back, and you get about $1/3 billion in household earnings. That's $1/3 billion going into Louisiana resident pockets.
Is that a trend that is growing?
Absolutely. We had a drop-off when the credits became difficult and uncertain. Now that the governor has been able to put some certainty back into the credits, we've definitely seen a jump up.
I'd like to ask each of you kind of what you think that it will take for the film industry to continue to thrive in Louisiana. In addition to the strong incentive program, what do you think we need to continue this growth trajectory and to be kind of the most thriving community that we can be?
A big thing that the incentive truly helps on is building our indigenous film community, so that a lot of the dollars that we see in the presentation that was earlier are generated from Louisiana. So not just things that are piloting in, but shows and films that are created by Louisiana content makers. So I think it's supporting local filmmakers via grants, supporting it through technical training and fellowships, will help this industry grow and thrive, and it will be, not a fear of other people coming in and leaving with the money, because they're here and they want to be here and they have the opportunity to make their projects at a much larger scale within the state. So I think that's where I would like to see it grow in 10 years. I'd like to see a show with a showrunner and a writer's room and everything from Louisiana is the ultimate dream and goal. Maybe it will be, who knows?
I think education, not only education at a secondary level or university or film school side of it, but I think educating your community, educating your peers, your family members, your legislators, and continuing to explain to them that this is not just kind of a glamorous, sexy business, but it's actually a manufacturing industry that promotes people from within to well-paid jobs, to buying homes, to making incredible livings and reinvesting in the community and telling stories. There will always be a need for stories. So recognizing that this is a successful industry and it's one that is more of a benefit than it will ever be a detriment to the state is something that I think needs to happen. So talk to your parents and show them your paycheck and pat yourselves on the back for being able to do this here and making sure people know across the board that you can have a thriving industry.
Yeah, and I think the indigenous tax credits, I think that's very helpful. That's the biggest thing for me.
I will tell you, again, my wife and I moved to Austin, Texas in 1992. It didn't have a whole lot there at the time. It's really kind of hard, if you've been to Austin recently, to see the way that town has sort of built itself. And one of the things it's built itself on is an indigenous film community. The thing I will tell you is to not stop working hard. And that goes for everybody in this room. I mean, the idea of a brain drain, right? The idea of the film industry being in Louisiana is an awesome idea. But to be honest, the film industry lives in Los Angeles and it lives in New York. But what we're building here is one of those adjuncts and those arms that is incredibly important. And if we build ourselves to be essential to that industry, then we can actually be a part that they can't ignore. And part of that is to keep working super hard to help nurture the film community that's up here and out there. I actually do it with sound effects. I'm glad that it came in at the right time. Something dramatic is what I'd asked for. Good job. Awesome job. And then that whole idea of really kind of focusing on bringing more money in, because for people like Lauren, that's the key. The key is the funding key. It's like I tell people all the time as documentary filmmakers, for us, it's money and time. That's it, money and time. And so what everyone is doing, whether it be from the incentive side or from the nurturing side, we've got to keep doing it and do it with redouble the effort if we want to beat everyone else that's out there that's trying to do it and be better than them.
You heard the governor talk about 17 major motion pictures are currently in production, or TV productions here, and we estimate that they'll spend $300 million in the state. Awesome. More than half those productions are TV series, and we like to hear that because TV series tend to have a longer production time, which translates to extended economic impacts on local communities, small businesses, and on payroll, and then the economic impact on our state. LED's programs for live performance, sound recording, and interactive media are generating significant impacts as well. And I'm going to need your help to continue to support those. In 2018, LED received over 70 total applications for these programs, and they represent more than $100 million in qualified in-state expenditures. We're proud of these numbers. Thank you, Michael Danilo, for your fiscal impact and analysis that you've now provided to us in draft form. We will continue to work to sustain and grow the momentum that was demonstrated in that analysis. We understand that these figures don't necessarily show the important stories and faces that are behind our entertainment industry. This is about preserving our past, you saw the Orpheum, coloring our present, and shaping our future. Part of today's presentation is about our analysis, this economic analysis, that was carefully done following all the right rules and formulas and models in economic impact analysis. But as I speak today about facts and figures, please also note with me that there's tremendous secondary effects of the entertainment industry here in Louisiana. A message that is not often heard, except when you tell it. As we grow the entertainment sector, we grow the digital sector, we grow the economy of tomorrow, and that impacts energy, logistics, manufacturing, cybersecurity. All of that is part of the digital economy that's represented in this room. And let's talk about motion pictures, digital motion pictures mostly these days. Greyhound, the World War II naval drama, scripted by and starring Tom Hanks. It was filmed on the USS Kidd here in Baton Rouge and at other locations nearby. The film's estimated expenditures in Louisiana, about $30 million, including $7.6 million in payroll for Louisiana residents. More than that, the revenues from the Greyhound are having that secondary impact, improvements to the USS Kidd's infrastructure, gift shop, website, and a new program, a digital program, that they're going to bring around virtual reality, which is a prototype that allows visitors to experience what the ship's environment was like nearly 70 years ago. As Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development, and as a proud veteran, this evokes a deep sense of pride within me, because Greyhound, the USS Kidd, will be better positioned to attract more tourists to Baton Rouge, benefiting more small businesses right here in Louisiana. And just as important, the film will preserve a World War II destroyer that helped protect America's freedom during a storm of global turbulence, World War II. our live performance. Locations like the Strand Theater, built in 1925. It's the official state theater of Louisiana, and it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Strand has been ranked as one of the top 5 glitziest theaters for live performance in the country, and it attracts various theater productions, including Broadway musicals like West Side Story, Jersey Boys, Hello Dolly. In January of this year, AEP SWEPCO, that's the Southwestern Electric Power Company, they serve Northwest Louisiana, partnered with the Strand to modernize the theater's lighting system and replace 2,500 bulbs with brighter, more cost-effective, cost-efficient LED bulbs. Those aren't Louisiana Economic Development bulbs. We have a long and rewarding history of working with all our utility partners, but SWEPCO in Northwest Louisiana has been a champion. They've been a champion for economic development activities, and in that part of the state, they help small business community, but also major steel manufacturer, Bentler Steel and Tube, and other major users at the Port of Catawba, like the recycling plant, Pratt Industries, and Ternium, another steel-engaged company. This commitment to improve a great community institution such as the Strand shows the power of our partnerships in Louisiana and how all of this has strong secondary impacts that ripple through our state and our economy. It's also true for Sanger, Orpheum, CenturyLink Center, the Cajun Dome. Many of these venues are getting far more utilization and revenue than ever before thanks to our live program. Those publicly owned facilities benefited by more than $1 million in rental income associated with our live program. That's really another secondary benefit. And is Miss Jody Hannett here? Please stand up if you are, Jody. What's her program? She leads the state's youth orchestra program. They're taking advantage of our live performance credit. And 800 kids are performing in orchestras across our state thanks to the benefit of this program, building the next generation of musicians here in Louisiana. In sound, New Zealand musician Anika Moa. She signed with Atlantic Records when she was just 18, and over the span of nearly 2 decades, she's released 5 studio albums recorded primarily outside the United States. To record her 6th, she came to one of her favorite cities in the world, mine too, New Orleans, Louisiana. She recorded an album at Esplanade Studios, housed in the 1920s church in Tremé that was abandoned after Hurricane Katrina. Shreveport native Brady Blade produced the album, and it also featured a number of local musicians. When referring to New Orleans, Anika says, "It's full of life, romance, and a touch of crazy," which is what I needed for the new songs I was bringing to the table. Y'all make it sound like everybody needs a little bit of New Orleans. Digital media. Louisiana has increasingly built a robust IT sector. 10 years ago, you would have never imagined it. Our forward-looking strategy, productive partnerships, and targeted programs have helped us attract and retain and grow companies like General Dynamics IT, CenturyLink, CGI, IBM, DXC, EA. Man, there's just all kinds of alphabet soup out there. Accruent and TurboSquid. Most recently, food delivery and software development company. This is the digital intersection I keep telling you about. Waiter announced that it will locate its headquarters in Lafayette's downtown district and create 200 new jobs in Lafayette. So proud to see CEO Chris Moe stand up at that Waiter Day celebration and proclaim that while everyone tried to tell him that he needed to be in Nashville or Austin or Atlanta or Dallas, he knew he could build his business in Louisiana. Amid the festive atmosphere that is so typical of Acadiana, I was able to do one other thing that I've never done before in my economic development career, and that was Zydeco dance with my 3-year-old grandson. So bring those Zydeco bands to your ribbon cuts and your groundbreakings. They're great. Live music, right? At the end, Chris Moe got up on stage and asked restaurateur Z Bollock to step up there beside him, and he gave Z the mic, and Z shared what happened was that Waiter helped him double the size of his business and staff, resulting also in the need for a much larger kitchen. These secondary stories are tremendous. They're part of the ripple effect. They're part of what's being generated in this room and well beyond. So not only was Waiter succeeded and tracked its success in partnership with small businesses, but all these secondary effects are rippling through our economy. So these Louisiana stories show the importance of our strategic investment in film and live and sound and digital. And Michael told us this morning that that net is less than $100 million, and showed us that our investments are preserving our past, coloring our present, and shaping our future. Well, I think what people have to do is step back and take the big picture in. Economies are driven digitally today, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is logistics, whether it's energy deliver systems, all kinds of things are digitally driven. The entertainment industry supports that digital platform. They live on it, they grow it. They're an essential part of the futures of our state in terms of our state's economy. Yes, we want oil and gas. Yes, we want forestry. Yes, we want agriculture. Yes, we want manufacturing. But to expand on the digital frontier is absolutely essential to the state's future economy. And entertainment plays an appropriate role in that. You might even think of them as towards the centerpiece. This is how we have IBM and DXC and General Dynamics IT and CenturyLink. They are all related to digital content.
There's a Louisiana advantage that needs to be recognized, and it needs to be celebrated a little bit. I mean, I spent the first 25 years of my career in Southern California, and there's no game studios in California that are working with other game studios to grow anything or working with the government to do anything. I tried for 20 years to get my alma mater's computer science department to do something with us, and couldn't get professors who loved me while I was a student there to listen to me long enough to do anything. And within 10 days of getting to New Orleans, I had the president of UNO in my office begging me to get involved with the computer science department. And we have the other game companies. We're getting together and we're talking about things like diversity, and we're talking about things like 8th grade and 9th grade science programs and reaching those kids so that we have the right talent down the road. There is a willingness between government and companies together, us gathering up as groups all the time and talking about these issues. That's just not happening anywhere on the West Coast or anywhere else. And we just need to keep leveraging that. And I think we've seen changes, and we've been pulling kids out of all these programs, and we just want to continue doing more of that.
Yeah, I thought it was very surprising. We work with Autodesk a lot. They're worth, I think, about $30 billion, one of the largest software companies in the world, based in San Francisco. And when we were working through the tax credit and all the other stuff we've done with LED and the governor's office, they were shocked. They're like, you can talk to the governor's people? Like, this doesn't happen. Like, nobody speaks to Sacramento. It was completely like we were on a different planet and the rest of that. But it was the same kind of thing. You have access here. It's a strength of ours that in California, they're just like, this is a lost cause. They wouldn't even try that.
Yeah, we were in Newport Beach for 20 years. There was no one in the city council or in the mayor's office that had ever even heard of us. But we can go talk to the mayor about stuff and get excited about their programs, and it's just this weird phenomenon that we just need to leverage it. We need to keep running it.
I think sometimes we lose sight of the real impact that the tax credits and the digital media tax credits have on small companies like ours. We've been able to compete on a larger stage because of the talent we're able to recruit to us Employees that we could never get to come to our offices in Southern California are able to come to our second office in New Orleans, and it's allowed us to compete with much larger companies.
I mean, the thing that's so striking is how good the quality is of the product coming out of Louisiana. We can compete globally, and the truth is we actually do, and we export our products, and people around the world spend their money, and it all comes into our economy. So it's a way for us to have a global competitive advantage by having the quality of all the film producers, game producers, software. It all is a worldwide product that brings wealth back into the state.
It's really important that we're supported by the state of Louisiana in our endeavors to try to grow the digital footprint here in the state. And the tax credits that we've received from the state are really vital to helping us retain and get talent and helping us grow our business here.
I mainly produce films, but there's an amazing crossover opportunity in Louisiana about making games that are either based on films or just making games and interactive content in general based on Louisiana stories.
The Louisiana film industry is going very well. The tax incentives are alive and well and keeping things moving along very strongly. In New Orleans, it's a beautiful place to shoot. It's where I live, so I prefer to shoot in New Orleans primarily, and outside of New Orleans in the bayous and different landscapes. I spend a lot of time pitching in LA and New York about the tax incentives, why it makes sense to do a project here, and I specifically look for scripts to develop myself with Noam Digger Films and other people in our community to shoot in Louisiana.
When people think about film in Louisiana, they think of everything south of I-10. But with the Louisiana Film Prize and what we built up in Northwest Louisiana, people are really starting to think of our corner of the state as an independent film capital.
What kind of films have been produced in Northwest Louisiana?
Well, pretty much everything that has been produced down in South Louisiana has found its way to North Louisiana. Our focus at the Film Prize is really more on independent shorts that will evolve into independent features. So really what we're trying to do and what we're focused on is building an indigenous film community that is going to start with microfinanced independent features that will actually hopefully lead to larger features as we keep evolving our film scene up there.
Louisiana's film industry is thriving at the moment. We have done some really special and important changes to our program that have just blossomed into all different types of production in all different areas of the state, from big studio television projects to small independent films to documentary films to student films. You can go to any part of the state right now and you're going to see film activity.
I know most of the people already because it's a somewhat small community, but I'm very encouraged and impressed with the interest. We see the cross-pollinate all these different interests together between film and games.
I think it's incredible. There's so many people who are trying to coordinate to make this happen. It's not like this in every other state. We have the government and the governor, and we have mayors, and we have all the people, the universities, the talent, everybody's working together. It's just not like this in California. It's not like this everywhere else. And so it's amazing to get everybody in one room together.
It's so supportive. We have such a great community. It's very rare that you have a film community that isn't competitive. I feel like everyone here is trying to help each other out. We all want our community to grow even stronger. And, there's so many other filmmakers I call on the phone that live here and ask specific questions. Oh, has this happened during a distribution deal? Or have you had, have you worked with this DP? Have you worked with this particular camera? There's a million questions that happen. And I feel like when I was living in LA or New York, I didn't feel like the community was really there to reach out or to help me. There was a lot of competition. Everybody was kind of looking out for themselves. Here I feel like we really work as a community and everyone's really looking out for each other and we're all trying to grow stronger together, stronger.
I came to the first one, and this is the second annual event here. It's been a really impressive crowd, and I've actually learned a lot, so I'll be back for the next one.
Exciting. I think what's happening in Louisiana is very unique. To see the partnerships developing between the state organizations and the companies, and then the way the companies are coming together and working with each other to help grow the sector and technology and digital media jobs. It's unlike anything that's happening anywhere else.
I'm super impressed. I've my wife and I moved from Austin, Texas. We settled in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we knew about the film scene. We knew about the community. Been here for about 9 years, but to see it all culminate in an event like this is pretty mind-blowing. I mean, what it shows more than anything is it shows a unified front. And I think that what's incredibly important to Louisiana and its film scene is that it keeps working hard, because there are other states out there that want what we got.
I feel like we have done some real heavy lifting in the previous years, and we have come up with a solid, smart, responsible plan and program that both supports independent filmmakers, attracts big business, and also is fiscally responsible to the taxpayers of Louisiana.
Tell us, what does the Louisiana's film industry mean to the state in terms of economic development, jobs, and taxes?
The film industry in Louisiana is so important to Louisiana's, I'll start over. The film industry in Louisiana is important to its continued diversification, right? I mean, in order for our state to continue to succeed and become a leader in any industry, we have to create and attract the individuals into our state that will be thought leaders and in our industry, and that's exactly what this program is doing.
Your reaction to everything you've seen and heard here today?
I think it's wonderful. This is the second summit that we've had. I think LED has done a tremendous job putting together a collection of some of the smartest and brightest filmmakers and producers in Louisiana. So happy to be here.
Wow, what a great opportunity for all the attendees. It was a sold-out event. We're very, very pleased. We had a lot of folks making connections, making contacts, a lot of interaction, great panel discussions, great information shared. Just really, really excited.
There's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and it's well placed. The statistics show that we've got a 200% increase in independent films being produced here in Louisiana. All around the state, Shreveport's coming to life, Lafayette's getting business, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, of course, has been sort of the center for a lot of this activities, but more than 17 major productions ongoing in the state right now. They're supporting our small businesses. Again, great payroll for a large segment of our workforce.
I'm jumping with joy. It was an excellent, excellent show. We're really pleased. We'll turn our heads towards the future and look forward to next year.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
We always ask that they go to opportunitylouisiana.com. They'll get plenty of information there and connected to the right people that can help them, whether it's in growing their small business, getting involved in the entertainment industry, or looking for other opportunities in our state's economy.